This is a leaf that I picked from my lemon tree. During summer, the shady side of many of the leaves are covered in white fuzz. This video will show you some of the creatures that I found living on the bottom of this leaf. The top of the leaf, which faces the sun, doesn't have much on it other than dust. The white fuzz, from a distance, resembles soft, flexible cotton, but it's made of cylindrical hairs that are very brittle, and if you touch one, it will break into pieces. The hairs appear to be scattered around the leaf at random, but they do not appear to be attached to the leaf. They seem to be clinging to it for the same reason dust particles cling to objects. As you will see, there are creatures on this leaf that are creating these hairs, but I don't think they are deliberately scattering them around. I think that as the creatures create the hairs, they break into pieces. Some of the pieces fall to the ground, but many cling to the leaves. There are actually two different types of fuzz. In addition to the long cylindrical hairs, there is a much finer type of fuzz that is made of fibers that are too small for my camera to see clearly. Here is some of that very fine fuzz. Some areas of the white fuzz are lifeless, but other areas have tiny flies hiding in the fuzz. Its antenna is in focus right now, and as the head and wing come into focus, notice that the entire surface appears to be covered in some material that resembles frost. I can't figure out if the frosty material are tiny hairs or if they're some type of scales like a moth. The flies are not completely motionless. Their body is twitching once in a while. The photos of whiteflies on the internet don't show very much fuzz on the leaf, so I don't know if my leaf is unusual or if those other people just selected leaves that didn't have much fuzz. The flies are sitting in a nest of very fine fuzz, so I suppose they are the creatures that create that fine fuzz. They don't appear to eat the leaf or suck its juices. I assume all they are doing is laying eggs. The reason I say this is because scattered around the leaf are lots of eggs. Every egg is attached to the leaf by a short stem. The eggs are white, but have a slight orange color where they connect to the stem. Some of the eggs are darker in color. I suppose those are the more mature eggs. The area by the arrow may have been where a moth was sitting. There might be more than 100 eggs on this one leaf. There could be tens of thousands on the entire tree. Their life cycle is typically 1 month in a warm climate, so they can create an incredible infestation during the summer. The eggs are slightly transparent, and as they get darker, you can see colors inside. I didn't see any of the eggs hatch, but I did find some tiny creatures crawling around. According to the drawings on the internet, these are the whitefly nymphs. A piece of a white hair is clinging to it. They are not very good at crawling and don't seem to have any protective mechanisms. They have trouble just pushing through the extremely lightweight, brittle hairs. This one is not making any progress at all. A predator wouldn't have any trouble catching these things. I suppose their primary defense is to reproduce so quickly that the predators can't keep up with them. The nymphs occasionally shed their skin. I found one that was in the process of doing it, and I carefully removed it from the leaf. Its head is at the top, only its tail is still in the old skin. Its legs are extremely crude. They are like stumps without feet. It is no wonder it has trouble crawling. I moved it to the top of a hard disk to give you an idea of how small it is. The two tiny dark spots are its very simplistic eyes. While that one was struggling to molt, I looked around on the leaf and found this strange creature. I suppose this is a whitefly nymph at a more advanced stage and is getting ready to turn into a fly. It seems to be attached to the leaf, but it's wiggling in some manner. Or maybe it is a fly climbing out of its cocoon. The problem with studying these creatures is that after you cut the leaf off the tree, all of these nymphs, which are sucking juice from the leaf, start to die. I would have to study them while they are on a live plant. I pried this creature off of the leaf and put it on the hard disk next to the other one. It reminds me of a trilobite. As you will see later, there is a tiny protrusion on their backs where droplets of liquid come out, which I suppose are their waste products. I got tired of waiting for the other one to get out of its old skin, so I knocked it off for it. Here it is upside down. They seem to have 8 legs, but they are more like stumps than legs. Apparently, legs are not important to these creatures. I suppose all they do is crawl around a bit until they find a spot on the leaf to attach to, and then they suck juice out of the leaf. They can barely walk. This one is trying to walk on the label of a hard disk, which is very smooth, but even so, they are so helpless that it ought to be easy for us to breed their predators, such as lacewings, rather than trying to control them with poisons. I moved both of those creatures to a clear plastic container so that I could shine light from underneath them and see through them. They're too small to figure out what is inside them, but they are interesting. What amazed me about this particular one was that during the following hours, several cylindrical hairs began growing out of its body at an incredible rate. Since this creature did not have a leaf to suck juice from, it was slowly dying, but 8 hours later it was still alive and its hairs were longer than its legs. After 13 hours it was almost dead, and a few hours later it died. I then knocked off some of the hairs and tried to measure them. Each division on this ruler is a 64th of an inch, so I guess the hair is about 100th of an inch, or about 1/4 millimeter. That is a very high growth rate, which could explain why some of these nymphs have very long hairs. Most of the growth occurred during the first 10 hours, which is about 17 millimeters a month. If it had been attached to a leaf and getting proper nutrition, it may have been growing hairs at an even faster rate. By comparison, human hair grows about 12 millimeters a month. I looked around on the leaf to see if there were any other type of creatures, and I found this thing attached to the primary vein of the leaf. It has an orange body and is covered in yellow fuzz. I found a larger version of this creature attached to the stem of a lemon, and I'll make a different video about that one. It's another defenseless bug that sucks juice and covers itself with fuzz. The yellow material is too small for me to see clearly, but it looks like curly hair. This is a side view of the creature. The whitefly nymphs go through a variety of stages and moltings, so they have different visual appearances. Here is one with 10 very long hairs coming out of it. Here is another one from its side. Notice a droplet coming out of a protrusion on its back. It disappeared quickly. I don't know if it rolled down onto the leaf or if the creature sucked it back up. It came out of that protrusion that is covered with some white fuzz. Here it is, looking down on it. Here is a very hairy nymph that is wiggling that little protrusion. It's difficult to see it, but it looks like an exhaust vent. Around the periphery of many nymphs are lots of tiny hairs, perhaps to help camouflage it, or maybe they're helping it to grip the leaf. Some of the nymphs are so thoroughly covered in white fuzz that you can't see if they have little hairs around their periphery. Furthermore, some of the short hairs are covered with something that looks like frost. This nymph has both long, smooth hairs and a lot of short hairs that are covered with that material. The hairs are too small for me to see clearly, but it looks like there are some type of crystals growing on them. I decided to pry this one off the leaf and take a closer look at it. With a dark background, the hairs are a bit easier to see, but I still can't figure out what that white stuff is on them. How does it produce hairs like this? Does it first produce smooth hairs and then cover them with crystals? When flipped upside down, you can see a tube coming out of it that apparently penetrates the leaf and sucks out the juices. The creature is wiggling the tube. I suppose it's trying to find some juice. This one doesn't seem to have a bunch of tiny hairs around its periphery. Here it is from the side. Its feeding tube is twisted and has a rough texture. Meanwhile, back at the leaf, I find another strange creature that looks like a caterpillar. The drawings on the internet of whiteflies don't show this type of creature in the life cycle, so maybe this is something else. I can't figure out which end of this creature is its head and which is its tail. Maybe it's trying to bite into the leaf from the right end, or maybe the head is at the left end and is waving around in the air. Anyway, I continued looking around on the leaf, and I find another strange creature. This one is almost completely transparent. This creature is not much larger than the whitefly eggs, but the drawings on the internet that show different stages of whitefly nymphs don't show anything that looks like this. So maybe this is yet another creature. Maybe this is the baby of that orange creature that was covered with yellow fuzz. If this creature is trying to walk through the fuzz, it is having tremendous difficulty. Or maybe it's trying to attach itself to the leaf. It's too tiny to see clearly, but it doesn't look like it has any internal organs. It looks like a clear plastic bag of water with some legs and a head. I picked it up and put it on this piece of plastic. It's on its back. Some of the white fuzz is clinging to it. It quickly flips itself over and starts crawling away. It's another of those creatures that resemble a tick or lice. It seems to have 8 legs, 4 of which are pointing forward. It has a physical resemblance to an even smaller creature that I found on the skin of the lemons, which I'll show you in another video. But those other creatures are a bright red rather than clear. This tick-like creature can crawl much better than those whitefly nymphs. Some of the whitefly fuzz is trailing behind it. I don't think it produced any of that fuzz. I found only one of these on the leaf, so it's not very common. The 4 legs near its head seem to be larger and stronger than the legs on its back. Going back to the leaf, I occasionally find a clear ball in the hairs. They seem to be perfect spheres and almost completely transparent. I picked one up and put it on this piece of plastic. It's a sticky substance like sap. Maybe this is what those silverfish nymphs were producing. I looked around the leaf some more and discovered a second style of whitefly. I found only a couple of these on the leaf. The more common whitefly was smaller and more plain looking. If each of these whiteflies have slightly different nymphs, that would explain why I found so much variety in the nymphs. The eyes remind me of that trilobite-like creature that I found earlier. Maybe that was the nymph of this type of whitefly. Its wings are covered in some type of white flakes that look like frost, and they're also covered with pieces of white hairs that the nymphs produce. Some people describe these creatures as waxy, but do they produce the type of wax that we can melt into candles? What exactly is this white stuff? Unlike the other whiteflies, this one didn't like me looking at it, but it didn't fly away. It just crawled away, stopping once in a while to clean its antenna. All of these creatures were on just one lemon leaf, and there are probably lots of microscopic creatures also. There is an entire city of creatures on this leaf. Also, this was just a typical leaf on the shady side of my lemon tree. I didn't pick this leaf specifically because it was full of creatures. Finally, I found a couple of balls and a rod of clear material that was growing black mold. Perhaps it's the same sticky material in those clear balls, but these are getting old and starting to decompose. When the whiteflies first appeared on the leaves became white on their bottom side, but as the weeks passed, the leaves became increasingly dark, perhaps because of this black mold.